Hello, hello. Ron Callis here with another episode of Automation Unplugged. Today is Wednesday, July 21st. This is an unusual time for us to go live, so it is a little bit before 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Troy and I both had some scheduling conflicts, but we wanted to make sure that we got this show in. And so we're coming to you, call it 30, 45 minutes earlier than our normal Wednesday shows. So I appreciate your understanding in that regard. What I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and check out our Facebook page to make sure we are actually streaming. So bear with me here as I check out the interwebs and see if we are streaming live. There we go. It does look like we are streaming live, which is positive. And let's check out the phone to see if I got a Facebook or a LinkedIn notice. Again, if you are new to the show, we did start streaming in LinkedIn recently. Yeah, and it looks like we are streaming live on LinkedIn as well. So hello to all of you out there. If you are tuning in, don't forget to give us a like or a share. And if you feel so compelled, let's ask our guest questions, because we have a returning guest today. We don't have too many returning guests. There's maybe only a couple a year. And Troy is one of those returning guests. And Troy and I were having some fun just before we went live and reminiscing. And Troy was last on the show. He was on show number 7. So we're going back into the data vault here to bring one of our OGs from Automation Unplugged. And Troy was on the show in the summer. I forget the date, but it's on our website. If you go to the Automation Unplugged page and search up Troy. But Troy was on the show in approximately, I want to say, June 2017. So we're going to have a lot of fun catching up with Troy. Troy's been a busy bee the last 4 years. And we're going to see what Troy has going on. So my guest today is Troy Morgan. He is the founder and CEO of PanTech Designs. They're out of Dallas, Texas. And, Troy's been in the industry for 23 years. I actually worked with Troy there for an instant in the early 2000s when we were both at Crestron. And Troy has gone on to grow just an impressive, diversified business. And I know many of you listening or watching probably know Troy and probably know Troy's work and his team's work, because they're one of the best out there. So without further ado, let me bring him on and let's get him introduced. Troy, how are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm great. Doing good. Kind of fun. Been a while.
Man, you and I were chatting. Can't believe it's been 4 years since. I can't believe the show's been around that long. I'm feeling old.
You and me both, brother. You and me both.
So
different. It's
Well, I went back and watched the video, and anyone listening or watching this, Troy's original interview does not exist yet in the podcast form. So if you only listen, you're not going to grab it. But if you do go to our website, onefirefly.com, and find the automation page, you can look at Troy's, you can search for Troy's name and you can find the original interview. So this was actually prior to using the software platform we are on now and prior to podcasting. But that, if you want to go listen to the older show, it's there. Troy, for our audience, why don't you let them know maybe what is PanTech Design and what your role is in the company?
PanTech Design is, we've been around a long time. We started in 2005, and we're a software and hardware engineering company, really by sort of our core. And a lot of people don't know this about the name, if you will. The PanTech name really came from Pan being a Greek god of, to keep it simple, all-encompassing everything. And so the idea is that we can design everything technical, right? So been doing it a long time, and we've touched a lot of different projects and a lot of different situations, and built a lot of neat pieces of hardware and software and whatnot. And so my role is to help provide that vision, help generate opportunities in business, but also, I touch every part of our business: the software, the design, engineering. Being a small company, wear a lot of hats. So you can see a title that says CEO and president, but if the trash needs to be taken out, I'm there doing that too. Just depends on what's needed.
Chief cook, bottle washer, salesperson, HR, whatever you got to be in that moment. That's who you are.
Right.
That's awesome. And I see you're wearing a shirt. For our listeners, they don't see your shirt, but your shirt says Adapt Energy. So just maybe clarify within the PanTech Design company umbrella, what is Adapt, what is Adapt Energy, and then maybe I want to say there's another arm where you're doing just pure custom design and engineering and programming of systems.
Of course, yeah. So we'll start sort of chronologically or historically, I guess. So PanTech Design has developed a software platform that makes programming of Crestron systems a lot more efficient and a lot more flexible. So there's pretty much nothing Adapt can't do when it comes to the programming of a Crestron system using our Adapt framework. From that framework that is available to all the Crestron integrators out there, we developed a sort of a spin-off product, but it's also hardware. So it's not just software; it's hardware and software that makes sort of tying the energy management of a home into the home automation. Although Adapt Energy is really a standalone product, it can definitely be blended together. And so we've evolved to create this hardware solution that manages, monitors, and controls energy in a home.
All right, we're gonna dissect those different business units just to help our audience understand kind of all the creative solutions that you and your team have impressively put together. We do have a question here live that just came in, and Hashish says, "Why is Crestron-based UI unable to reach the UI finesse of apps like Savant?" So let's just start it out with a controversial question. Or I don't know if that's
great. It's a great question. And Crestron's definitely moving in the right direction when it comes to solving this problem. But the reasoning is because they've done something quite amazing and impressive, which is been able to be backwards compatible with product that they introduced in the early 2000s. And the way they were able to do that is by creating such a good software platform for development tools called VT Pro, which is their development tool for user interfaces. That tool is so great that it's been able to evolve over a very, very long period of time. And so we're literally using the same tool for the user interfaces, Crestron user interfaces today, that we were using in the early 2000s. Now it's obviously evolved and gone through some transitions, but it still is the same tool. So while that's a positive, it's also a little bit of a negative because it doesn't allow us to do the leapfrog in technology with respect to some of the newer capabilities of user interface design and things like that. So case in point, HTML5. But Crestron, mindful, and years ago, I think 3 years ago at this point, they began development on their own sort of spin on HTML5 that they call CH5. And a lot of the developers are beginning to learn those tools and adopt those tools. And their hardware today is fully capable of supporting the HTML5 initiative for the most part. There's still a few UIs that aren't, but pretty much across the board, that's the direction. So you're going to start to see a lot more of that. So yeah, Ashish, I totally understand. I'm with you, man. But it's going to happen. We're getting there.
Awesome. And just want to give a quick shout out. A few more people that popped in. Jessica G, she says, welcome, Troy. Excited to learn about Adapt. And Tomas just tuned in from Panama, and he says, good morning, Ron and all. So thank you, Tomas. Appreciate you tuning in. Troy, I always love the history and the legacy of kind of what brought you to the present. And I want to say you and I did a little bit of this in our 2017 show, but I'd like to think our current audience might have expanded a little bit. And so would you mind taking us to, like, where did this begin? Did your interest in programming and tech, was it a high school thing, a college thing? Where did all this begin, and how did it bring us to the present?
So way back, huh? All right. So,
way back.
So going way back, I've always been in love with technology. I was that kid who took the things apart that his parents gave him and had a bunch of pieces laying on the floor, right? So that was me. That turned into a car audio time period in my life where I did that at a very high level. I built competition vehicles. I was a sound judge. So, again, still loving technology, playing around with that stuff. And then I sort of got bored with the cars, right? Because they're small, and tucked under a dash wasn't where I wanted to be anymore. I wanted to do this cool stuff, this high-end cool stuff in homes. And so we're talking 96 is when I started to make that transition, but nobody was really doing that too much back then. Or if they were, I hadn't found them. And so I ended up going to work for a commercial integrator. And I was a wire monkey and just pulling the wire and so on and so forth. And then that turned into, and it wasn't but a month after being with the company, my immediate boss left, and the big boss came to me and said, so Troy, you seem to pick up on this stuff. You think you can program this stuff? And I went, I don't know. Give me a computer. Let me see what I can do. And I had a bunch of dead black boxes laying on the floor in front of me and had to pull off a project. And it was the Sherman Federal Courthouse building. And then a year later, I'd done many Crestron projects, and Crestron went, and where did you come from? Like, you're not on any of our training lists, or how did you, I taught myself, and Fred said, man, you want a job? And sure. And so I started Crestron's Dallas office back in '99, worked for them for 6 years. And sort of my natural progression would have been to move to New Jersey and, go work at the home office. I'd lived on the East Coast. I loved it, but I left it, and I wanted to stay in Texas. And so I chose to go a different route, and that was how PanTech Design got formed.
At what point did the Adapt solution, so you engineered, so you mentioned these words, and I've forgotten some of the other words, so you'll fill in the blanks, but there was software that was standard that everyone was programming Crestron with. And I know that because I worked for Crestron 03 to 07, and so there was VT Pro and simple
Windows.
Simple Windows. And you and your team innovated at some point along the way with a methodology around how to make it easier and less time to do as much or more than you could through the harder methods.
Right.
Tell us that story. What was that, and what was maybe the impetus, and where does that stuff sit now?
Yeah, so I can give you some statistics. We started in 2005, and then right around 2010, 2011, we started looking at well, we weren't looking at it then. We looked at it the whole time, but we realized that the average programming price of a project was starting to go down. Why is that? Well, because the market's changing, right? So you have new players in the market. You have Control4, you have Savant, you have even RTI and some of these other guys really putting together some pretty cool stuff. And so it was changing the landscape. And so we started looking at that in 2011 going, all right, what do we do about this situation? How do we remain relevant? How do we be competitive and just beat the pants off of any competition? So right around then, Crestron had introduced, well, not really introduced, it's more something we got to see because of our relationship with Crestron, 2 products, one called Studio and one called Simple Sharp. Now, Simple Sharp is a C# sort of, we'll call it a C# version of doing Crestron, which expanded the tool set capability vastly. Like, we could do so much more. When we started to see that, it was like, you know what, guys? We can now build a real framework that can do some really cool stuff with a configuration tool and blah, blah, blah. This is how we will beat the pants off our competition. So we started development of this in late 2012. We developed all of 2013, showed it to Crestron at CEDIA. They were pretty blown away, but we weren't done with it. We still had a long way to go. 2014, we developed all of 2014, and by that time, CEDIA 2014, we had done a few homes with it, mine and a few projects, and we were wildly successful. We were getting things done in like 80% of the time was saved. Like 10 to 20% is all we had to spend relative to what we used to have to spend. So obviously that changes your profitability because of that efficiency. So we're like, this is great. We're gonna be in great shape. And then in 2015, Fred Bargetzi, love the guy. He's no longer with us. He passed away
just recently.
He came to me and he said, Troy, how would you feel about making this wonderful thing you've developed available to all the programmers out there? And I was like, Fred, man, no. No way, dude.
Well, everything, there's always a price, right?
Yeah. Well, so good point. So actually, one of the other things I said was, Fred, are you asking to buy this? And Crestron's not, they haven't bought anybody to my knowledge. They've partnered, but they're just, it's not the way they do things.
They don't grow through acquisition.
No, they really don't. They've tried. And even Fred's own admission, like, we don't like doing that. But anyway, his point was, no, that doesn't make sense. That wouldn't be right for you guys. It wouldn't be right for us. We want to get behind you guys. And in fact, you can even go on Crestron's website right now and you can look up like partners and go to residential and go to software. You're only going to see one name there. We're the only company that they've ever given this special distinction to that makes software that goes into their boxes. But so Fred says to me, or I say to Fred, Fred, you're asking me to give away the keys to the kingdom here, man. And he looks at me with this beautiful, like, stern look, like, no, I'm not. I'm asking you to create a new kingdom. And I'm like, ooh, oh, wow. Okay, so we did that. So that was how Adapt was formed. Really, our code name for what we were building was the tool. that was very creative.
That was your Skunk Works like R&D name?
Yeah, like, you working on the tool today? Yeah, I'm working on the tool. Yeah. So anyway, that evolved to now we're going to CEDIA. We're introducing a software product. We had to learn a lot. How do we manage that? What do we do with our customers?
You did a big booth at CEDIA. I remember that. You had I went and visited you. You guys were slammed.
We were buried. We were buried both years, 2015 and 2016. And luckily for us, it was in Dallas, so that was convenient. But yeah, it was awesome. And so today, some statistics on Adapt. Adapt has saved 130 different integrators a ton of programming time. There are probably close to 2,000 Adapt homes out there, right, where they've used our software to be fast and efficient, and still going strong. It's a different model than what Crestron Home is, in that it's Crestron Home's a bit of a sandbox. We're like the ocean and the beach. You can just see for miles and miles and miles what you can do with Adapt.
So there's much fewer restrictions on what's possible when using Adapt compared to Crestron Home.
Oh yeah, anything's possible. In fact, you see that crazy robot back there. Well, that was actually built to prove that very thing. We built that so that when we introduced our Adapt software, he was an Adapt device. And the idea is like, dude, it doesn't matter what your device is. Adapt can integrate with it and control it. So.
I just got a note from my team that you are fuzzy, but now you are not fuzzy anymore. So it's always fun to see whether the algorithms with LinkedIn or Facebook will clear you up after the fact, maybe more ones and zeros, but you look crystal clear now. So we'll keep growing. Thank you, Jessica. I see Jessica's pinging me over here, letting me know. Let's check on Troy's internet. We're on the cutting edge here, Troy, with this live streaming stuff. So
it's where it goes. I'm sorry if I got fuzzy, but I don't think it's internet related, but you never know.
I think it's not actually. I think it's just the ones and zeros traveling through the interwebs. So you never know. So then transition for me, I understand adapt. I think our audience understands. You positioned it quite well. What is Adapt Energy?
So Adapt Energy is a hardware platform, first of all, that we put together to control and monitor energy in a home. And when I say control, I'm talking about literally controlling a circuit breaker inside of a load center. So why would you want to do that though, right? Why would you want to have some control over a circuit breaker? There's actually a lot of different reasons, but one fundamental reason is to shut it down when and if you lose grid power. Why would you be shutting something down when you lose grid power? Well, because you have a home battery. And your home battery can only power so much unless you're just a bazillionaire that wants to spend a bunch of money, which even the bazillionaires are looking at it going, no, I don't need a battery that can power my whole house for days and days.
I was going to say the bazillionaires, their homes are often very big. And so, more money, more problems. There's just more stuff that needs to be backed up.
Yeah. So what Adapt Energy does with this is it sort of looks at the home and says, okay, I have this much battery available and I can only power this much stuff. So let's turn off certain things that will make sure that the battery continues to work, right? The inverter in the battery, everything's happy and good. But B, maybe helps the battery last even longer. So there are different conditions, right? Like case in point with our crazy storm that we had here in Texas in February, how do you prepare for something like that, right?
Remind our audience, Troy, what that was, because it was all over the news, but I mean, it may be out of sight, out of mind for people at this point. But what happened in Texas in February?
Yeah, so we call that Snowmageddon because it was no joke and we weren't prepared. We went so we had a few days of freezing temperatures, right? So 20 and below. That froze the ground, froze everything for a little bit of an extended period of time. Then we got dumped over a foot of snow in some places. Well, for Texas, when the ground's that cold and the snow's going to stick like that, it changed a lot. Mainly, a lot of the generation plants that generate our power failed, whether they were renewable or not. And it was mostly a failure in transmission and distribution. The T&D side of things for the utility was affected dramatically. Now, what that created was when you have, and your demand also is going up because everybody's home and everybody's heating their home, right? So as this demand is going up, we broke records with demand during that period. The generation plants are dropping off. So guys, it's simple economics, right? Supply and demand. The supply wasn't there and the demand was, and before you knew it, the utility had to go, we're going to institute rolling blackouts. Well, those rolling blackouts actually turned into total blackouts, and rather than bringing people's power back on, they were leaving people's power off indefinitely for days.
When it was freezing and no one's home or persons are prepared for those freezing temperatures.
Oh yeah, no, and everybody's home at this point actually because you couldn't go anywhere because people don't know how to drive in that stuff in Texas. I mean, it's just you're home. But if you're home and you have no power, you have no heat, and people died. Stupid mistakes. Just because they're trying to survive. I mean, people putting generators in their home right? Gas
Oh.
generators, just not thinking about the carbon monoxide, and just the craziest things. So let's tie that in for a minute to what Adapt Energy kind of does, right? If everybody had Adapt Energy in their home, we could have done some of this load shedding and rolling blackout style of maintaining a grid. That would have saved lives. It would have saved a lot of people from what they dealt with. I mean, people were freezing literally in their own homes. It was sad.
I'm curious, has there, I mean, this is more just, you're a local on the ground in Texas. Has the demand for solutions, I'm going to say at the residential level, has it grown or changed in the last 6 months? I.e. solar to battery, or maybe just generators, and, or obviously for you, the tie-in is to energy automation. Has there been a change in the trend or the rate of requests or inquiries for that type of tech?
Absolutely. All the way around. It woke a lot of people up locally, but you look at everywhere in our nation. There's geographically, it looks like everybody's dealing with some degree of power something. You look at California and, the rolling blackouts they deal with because of fires. Oregon's dealing with some of that right now. And there are, what a lot of people don't understand is that our grid infrastructure in a lot of cases is really old. Sometimes upwards of 80 years old. A lot of the utilities have been upgrading, but it's hard to keep up with all of that as you look at upgrading your old infrastructure, but also having to build new, because we're building new homes and we're building new places, and so it's tough, right? So
I might be going down a path that you may or may not, but I'm actually curious. Are you prepared to tell our audience why America's electrical infrastructure is so old as compared to, say, Europe?
Look, anything I say is speculative and just my opinion, but I think it's because of two things. First thing, lack of education on the need, right? There's transition of people coming in and out, and they're only in this space maybe of management for a period of time, and they're not looking at the future. So that's one thing. And then the second,
politics or politicians, that's a problem. And by the way, I think I know the answer to this. So I was curious where your head was on this.
So that's part of it right there. And then the other part of it is can you market that?
Okay.
In a way, like, is it something that touches everybody, and you can sort of say you're doing something great? This is that whole green kind of thinking, and it's, I don't know. I think it's to me, it's a little bit of a sham at times, because
the green thing is a bit of a sham at times.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at EVs, people don't understand how much fossil fuel is burned to create one of those things. Wow.
We'll pull on that thread in a minute, but I'm just going to throw out there this. I think I know this, but maybe I'm just misremembering. But I want to say that because of World War II, most of Europe was blown up, and so they had to rebuild their infrastructure in the 40s, 50s, 60s. And America was, the mainland was primarily unaffected. So our infrastructure has never had that major purposeful rebuilding.
Ron, that's a really good point. I could totally see how that would be the case. Yeah, I mean, why do it if you don't have to? And it's also, money. Where's the money got to go that you have? Well, the old if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of it.
So to pull on that thread, and I think that's a fun one to pull, and I'm going to challenge that. Last year, we in our household were looking to replace a car lease, right? So I do a lease car. Usually we're a 1-car household, and my wife and son had their eyes set on a Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
And I fortunately convinced them into a BMW. So sorry for all my Tesla lovers. Love Tesla, but I love BMW more. And but in the research, my son, who was 11 at the time, he's now 12, he did the research to prove to my wife and I that the Tesla, his argument was no greener than the BMW when you looked at the energy cost to, and I'm sure I'm offending lots of Tesla lovers by saying this. So there's nothing personal here, but the cost of producing the car, cost of producing the battery, but then where do you think the electricity is coming from that's powering that battery when you go to the charging station? It's often, depending on where you live in the country or the world, it's often coming from a dirty power plant.
That's right.
And now, do you agree with that, or do I have it wrong?
No, you're spot on. It's changing, and let's be fair to the evolution and the energy transition, right? Because we are getting smarter. You know, we'll pick on the federal government for a minute. They got all excited and said, "Hey, we're going to give you guys a 30% tax credit. You put solar on your roof," right? And the utility companies went, "No, we don't want that." Well, what a lot of people don't realize is that solar is actually hurtful to the grid, right? Because you start seeing all this solar getting put on roofs because people got all excited and they have their tax credit, and so they buy all this solar. And then during the day, and this is we'll talk a little pre-COVID because it changed a little bit during COVID, but pre-COVID, during the day, man, you're at your office, you're over here, you're over there, you're doing whatever, you're not in the home. Well, when is the sun most abundant? Right? During the middle of the day. So what was happening there is that we're not using as much power during the day. We're generating all this solar, so all the excess solar gets dumped back onto the grid. Federal government says solar fantastic, makes you feel incentivized to get it, and then the utility has to pay for the ramifications of that. So they got to pay to clean the electrons, they've got to pay to deal with them, so this starts to touch that transmission and distribution sort of system.
Pumping that energy back into a broken infrastructure grid.
Right.
And so they're not in a position to receive those electrons.
Yeah, and the electrons are not regulated well either. So solar's kind of dirty by its very nature, right? So it's getting shoved onto the grid, and guess what's worse? The grid doesn't even need it at that time. That's not when the peak time of use is. So what's worse about that is during that period of time, a lot of especially the nuclear plants, they're actually curtailing power, right? So they're literally shoving power into the ground because they're producing more than they need because they know when peak time happens, they're going to have to make sure they have enough power. And you don't turn on and off nuclear plants, right? That's why we use those in submarines. Those reactors run. And they just go nice and steady, right? That's how you want your nuclear power to be. So there's a lot to this, but the bottom line is a battery solves all of it. But it's got to be a battery that's managed well. It's got to be a battery that's sort of we're doing the right things with from an energy use and sort of charge and discharge perspective. It's got to be efficient, because there's still loss involved, you know. And Ron, I know you've done a lot in robotics. You definitely understand power and how batteries work and things like that. I mean, that transition from AC to DC and DC to AC, that could be upwards of a 20 to 25% loss in power. So there's a lot to this, lot to unpack. But at the end of the day, solar does not make any sense, in my opinion, without a battery and a system to manage it. And then number two, I want to dispel a theory or something that is a bit of a misunderstanding. Just because you have solar power, panels on your roof, that doesn't mean you're going to have power when the power goes out. You only have power when the power goes out, and you have solar if you have a way to power the inverters to go from DC to AC, so your house can run on that solar power, which is typically a home battery that's going to make that happen. So when the grid goes down, you still have a way to power the inverter.
Troy, I'm going to talk to you as my subject matter expert here.
Okay.
What is the state of battery tech in the world? Is it good? Is it, where is it at today, and where is it going?
So where it is today is we have definitely figured out that there are challenges between safety and depth of discharge, and sort of a battery that works great. We'll keep it kind of simple. Battery that works really, really great and does its job for an extended period of time, and safety. And it's taken a long time to get here, but lithium iron phosphate, or iron phosphate, is one of the best out there.
That's the Sonnen battery, correct?
That is what they use for their chemistry. Yes. And there are other manufacturers that do this as well. Look, I don't want to pick on anybody, but there's other guys out there using different technology that's not as safe.
Can I say the name? Is that Tesla?
Fair enough. Yeah, if you want to learn.
My Tesla people are going to throw more eggs at me.
I know, right? But here's the beauty of Tesla. To give them some kudos and credibility.
By the way, I love Elon Musk. He's the man.
Good on you, Elon, and good on you, Tesla, in your marketing strategies and what. That's fantastic. But at the end of the day, what's driving innovation in battery tech is the need for mining a different mineral, if you will, to give us the ability to, to not have to worry about how to dispose of the battery, because the batteries don't last forever, and lithium's a bit of an animal for us to get rid of, right? And furthermore, where we get our lithium from. So now we've got a dependency that we need to be concerned about. So things to look out for: lithium polymer, still in the lithium family, but a different kind of chemistry. Zinc ion. That's something that is, I think, going to be part of our future. And the other one to watch is, what is that one called? I can't remember off the top of my head. It's brand new. I don't know too much about it. So
graphite, something another? Does it have to do with the
graphite involved? And the graphite's interesting between the anode and the cathode. It's a really, really cool tech. I just can't remember the exact.
I watched a science series, I think on PBS, about some new graphite battery tech.
Yeah, it's the thing about the graphite stuff. I think, if I remember right, and I think I watched the same thing you did, but it was the depth of discharge was like amazing. And that's the other thing about battery technology. People don't understand that different batteries are used for different situations. Well, when you want to make a car go, it has to have power immediate, torque immediate, to the wheels, and just that's the requirement of a battery like that. That's a little bit different requirement than something that's just humming along, right? That just runs at a nice static output. So there's that, and then we're doing so much cool stuff. I'm watching a lot of Formula One these days, but
have you been watching the series on Netflix?
Well, that's what got me into it.
We're into it too, man. It's amazing.
You got to start watching the races. I think I'm going to go to the one in October that's in Austin. But the thing that's interesting about that is what they're doing with EV technology. So there's Formula E as well, and Formula E is sort of those type cars powered with a battery. And then there's something else that you really want to watch out for, and this actually comes out of Formula E. There's a car company called Lucid, Lucid, that they've been developing this technology for the better part of a decade. They were the ones that supplied the batteries for the Formula E guys. So for all the cars, they were using the battery that's going to be used in this Lucid vehicle. They're just about to start shipping cars, and the Lucid Air can go 520 some odd miles on a single charge. And the tech is insane.
I want to say a normal Tesla is in the 200 to 300 mile range, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So we're talking about almost doubling the sort of the runtime, if you will. So a lot of neat things coming for sure.
What does it look like for the CI channel? Where is, we know that, so I'm going to name drop here. We have Rosewater, Joe Piccarelli. He's got an amazing battery, an amazing company. And I've had him on this show before. And then you have Sonnen. Sonnen has appeared at the CDS show for a number of years back to back. I think they're maybe due to the weirdness of the pandemic or whatnot. I think they've pulled out this year. So we won't see them in September, but I know you're a close collaborator with them.
Yeah, Adapt Energy is normally in their booth, and we both kind of decided we're going to just sort of watch things for now, right?
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah. Anyway, but for the CI channel, there's a convergence happening with or without that channel because it's sort of like, I liken it to what happened in like 93, 94. Okay, so 93, 94, Lutron, I believe it was that time frame, showed up at CDA. And everybody's going, why? Like, why are you here? What does a lighting system have to do with our awesome automation? We just didn't realize the importance, right? And how that would play a role. And now you look, a decade or two or more later, and all of a sudden a system doesn't go in without a lighting system. And you could say the same about shades. So what I see happening for the integrator is that they're on projects now where solar's being put in, a home battery's being put in, a generator's being put in, maybe all three. And some of the pioneers of things, the innovative thinking integrators are realizing there is money to be made in communicating with those devices, integrating with those devices. And so we've sort of, we had this idea of energy automation, right? Back, a few years ago or whatever, but really what this is, and we want to change that idea, we want to change it to energy integration. Because that's really what's happening is you've got all these different devices that do something with energy. Maybe they create it, maybe they store it, maybe they manage it. But when you integrate all those things together with the home automation system, you do some really cool stuff. Like, can you imagine your home managing its own power based on the battery's current state of charge? And because the battery has dipped below 50%, well, let's make sure the lights can only go to 50% because it's between the hours of X and Y. And, there's so many neat things. So for the CI guys, they're going to be able to start adding value, and they're seeing this. They're going to be able to add value by integrating all of that technology together and putting it all under one nice little roof in a system that manages itself for the benefit of the lifestyle of the homeowner.
Couple quick topics. In terms of home automation and the intersection of solar and batteries in the home, and I'll add another topic there, which is just home automation and energy in the home. We could put solar and batteries to the side. Are you seeing how today, if an integrator wants to deliver a solution to their customer to allow to, at a minimum, to monitor energy consumption and to interpret that and know what that means, how is that done today? And I'm making an assumption. I'm making a leap here, and I don't know that I know this, so it's only an assumption that might affect the energy usage patterns of the consumer. If they can see how much energy they're using today versus yesterday, maybe versus other people in their area. I know that probably is a big leap. I know my Nest thermostat used to do that. Where does that stand today?
I think that's the key. Honestly, Ron, I think what you just described is one of the keys to getting where we need to go. That's education, right? Once you can take data and information and display it in a way that a person can ingest it, understand it, and then make a difference with it, you've done something, right? So I call that the power of a watt. It's a little play on words, right? Understanding the power of what a watt is, right? And then the fact that
have you trademarked that? If not, you need to. It's in the public domain now.
We'll work on that, Ron. We'll work on that. But I do this with my kids, and you're absolutely right. They've got touchscreens in their rooms, and I take them to a dashboard that shows them just their room, right? They can literally see the power use in their room, and we turn on and off the lights. And I help them understand the power of a watt and how this translates to coal and trees, and so it's I think it's in the way that we deliver the information, giving the homeowner the ability to see things in such a way that it changes habits and also increases the demand for systems that make things better for not only their lifestyle, but the lifestyle of others around them. It's fun because technology can definitely do this for you. And that's another piece of it. Like you're not going to manage it in this granular manual fashion. Nobody in their right mind is going to decide to go through their whole house and unplug all the little things that have a phantom kind of load, if you will, that's drawing 0.001 watt, right? They're not going to think about it or care about it. But if a system did it for them, they would be very thankful for it. And to be able to see the data and the information. I'll use a phrase that my wife threw out there. I always show her all the cool, crazy technical stuff, right? We live it, we breathe it, we eat it and sleep it. And I'm like, honey, look at this, check this out. This is so cool. Watch this, watch that. And I'll never forget, this is a couple of years ago. She's like, babe, I like it. It's great, man. But really, all I want to know is if I'm winning or losing. And that was profound to me, because at the end of the day, I think that's what a consumer's really looking for, is a system that helps them win and lets them know when they're winning and when they're losing.
In order for this vision that you're describing right there to mean something to the country and to the world, it needs to be done in mass. I'm making an assumption here again.
Yeah, you're right.
But I'll also posit that a lot of new ideas start with those that can afford them, meaning the luxury consumer will often be the tip of the spear for new technologies. Is that where this is? They are the tip of the spear. They're the ones experimenting with this. And if so, when does it actually scale throughout this country and throughout the world to actually mean something for the future generations?
Yeah, first you're spot on. That's certainly where we have started in terms of the luxury brand of Adapt Energy and what it does, and all that. It's sort of like the Tesla Roadster. That's where they started. You vet your technology, both software and hardware, and you come up with new ideas and innovative ways to do things, and then you take that and you scale it. We're already in that process right now. Now, what's happening is we're starting to have conversations with utility companies, right? So you want to talk about scale, that's scale. Today, and for the past few years, I'm having discussions with integrators, solar contractors, electrical contractors who have a project, right? A singular thing that needs to be worked on, addressed, and whatever. And that's where we're great, right? We can solve all those crazy technical issues, and we do it with hardware and software tools. But in the future, with the utilities talking to us, they're looking at it from the standpoint of a much grander scale. Some of these utilities have millions of people that they supply power for. And so how do you take that technology, all the things that you've learned, all the things that you've innovated through this sort of higher end approach, and make it cost effective, but still capable of doing those very same things? Scaling, right? Well, it's happening literally right now. You do that through learning. Our current product, we can control. I could control over 2,000 breakers in a home if I wanted to. That's scalability on the technical side, right? But what we've learned is the average home needs to be able to turn off maybe 4 things, 5 things. So we don't need that added expense of 16 breaker control or 32 or 2000 or whatever. It's just learning those things and then making those tools available through the right channels, which is for us going to be utilities, builders, and developers. You know,
I'm going to give a personal example. So I moved into a new house 2019, and I met with I think I responded to some ad on Instagram. I'm a sucker for Instagram ads, and next thing I know, I had a meeting with a solar vendor that wanted to sell me solar. Mm-hmm. And when I could buy the solar, I could buy the batteries. It's a lot of money, but when I did the math, the math doesn't work. So I would not be doing it because financially it made any sense. I'd be doing it because I feel that, I almost want to say I'd be chest thumping in some way about being green. Or I'd want to be cool for my neighbors. So, and I don't care what my neighbors think, so that's not going to drive me. Right. And I'd like to think green, but there's points where I'm not going to spend many tens of thousands of dollars of my own money to be, 0.00000000001% better for my state.
Right.
I'm just not going to do that. So I guess that's the quandary I have about this stuff. And I believe, if you look at Moore's law and the cost of electronics and chips and silicon, it goes down, power goes up. Is there a Moore's law equivalent in this energy storage, usage, automation space? Or do you see it living in this luxury? By the way, it's okay to live in the luxury space, because I think our integrators and our channel could have a lot of success for a lot of years with this. I think it's very, very cool for our channel, but I'm talking about how do we save the planet?
Here's how we do it, and it's happening right now. And there is sort of a Moore's law approach, but it's how these things are getting funded, right? It's where the money is coming from, and what's being done with the money to scale things like what we're talking about. So let me give you an example of what I see happening in the future. People want resiliency. All you have to do is go through a hurricane or a major snowstorm or a thing, whatever it is in your life, and all of a sudden there's a very different weight put on resiliency to grid outages, right? Mm-hmm. And you're not buying into this because you're trying to save money. Why do you have insurance, Ron? Why do we have business insurance, car insurance, home insurance? It's just in case, man, right? So this is resiliency, and sort of like an insurance policy is how people are thinking about this. And we're starting to see this happen. This happen at the individual level. A home, one consumer. Hey, I don't want to go through that ever again. I want to make sure that my family's safe. Our technology's okay. Our koi pond is not going to be dead. Whatever it is, right? Resiliency. Now, you exacerbate that a little bit by looking at a community. So take that home and now go to a community level. A community wants some level of resiliency as well. How do you feel? And this happened to people. How would you feel? I had a bad dream about this, to be honest, about the power being out in Snowmageddon like we had in Texas, and being the only one for miles who actually has power.
I think if it went on long enough, it'd probably be dangerous.
Amen. That's exactly right. And that was the nightmare that I had. I actually didn't lose power, so I was very fortunate in that regard. What if I had? I couldn't turn on a light. Are you kidding me? There are people freezing in their own homes. What do you think is going to happen? Well, man the windows, right? With your.
I lived in Florida in 2004, 5, and 6 when some of the more major storms in not as bad as Andrew in 92, but some of the bad storms, and we were without power in Fort Lauderdale for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's when I bought my first gun, after that experience, after seeing how crazy society starts to break down. Yeah, when there is no food, no water, no gas, that's when you need to be scared.
That's right. So anyway, take that at a community level and say, all right, now the community can help each other, okay? And let's say the development had batteries in every home, and I'm a little low, you have extra power. Well, we can share that resource as a community, and so now the community is supporting each other. Now take that even a step further, and you go into a larger, sort of community type thing. This is called decentralization of the grid. So today, we get our power from the grid in most all cases, right? That's our first line of defense in terms of like where we get our power. What I see in the future and what's going to change things is when your first line of defense becomes your own little bubble, your home. And the home is managing itself in such a way that, hey, gee, today we're a little, cloudy, so we're going to change how we do some of the thises and some of that's, and we're going to squeeze on power and set it and forget it, right? And then the next line of defense is your community, right? Oh my gosh, I'm getting low, or my roof's facing this way, your roof is facing that way, so help me out. And, then the last line of defense becomes the grid, right? So we flip it 180 degrees. And now we've got this like beautiful thing. Now take that and look at apartment complexes and look at other multiple dwelling units and look at the roof space that they have. And guess what that is? That's a virtual power plant. This is a battery swarm, if you will, or batteries as a swarm on demand for the utility to ask for, right? Utility can go, man, you know what? We just saw an increase in demand. We're looking around, and rather than institute rolling blackouts, we're going to dispatch megawatts of power from this multiple dwelling unit, this apartment complex, or maybe this community to the grid. So now we're all working together to make these things happen, and we're literally working on those things right now. Virtual power plants are real, and how does it happen? How does it become a thing? How do we change the world? Well, it happens on the innovation, but that innovation happens all the way around. And we've got to have innovative ways on the financial end of things, just like we have to have innovative ways on the technical end of things to pull this off. And there are groups being put together right now that are doing some great things. They're called grid asset managers and grid asset owners. So they literally own the grid assets. Batteries, solar, blah, 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 blah. And they, to some degree, might control it. But the individual, the consumer, benefits in a major, major way. And so does the community, and then so does the utility.
I can see that future. I think that looks like a bright future. It looks like a fundamental entire redesign of the grid and of the way of thinking about power.
Yep.
Is this are we going to see this, Troy? Are our children going to see this, or is it beyond? Is our children's children going to see this?
Well, okay, so
I'm asking you to pull out your crystal ball here.
Yeah, my crystal ball's always broken, but
mine always is too. That's why I just ask others.
Yeah, right. Well, if I had to guess, yeah, we're definitely going to see it. I think I'm going to see it in my lifetime because we're building it right now. Now, are we going to see it transform in our lifetime? Maybe not in mine, but I think definitely in my kids' lifetime, because it all comes down to storage. It really, really does. I mean, we've got to have methods of storing a lot of power. Remember earlier I said what a lot of utilities do during the day. They curtail that power. They have no method of storing it. I mean, they've even tried crazy things like turning the grain silos that you see as you're driving. Well, you may not see those. We see them all the time in Texas. They've tried to turn those things into a battery. Just filling it up with some material and dropping some form of an anode and a cathode in there. How much power can we store this has been tried for many years. How crazy, right?
That's crazy.
So if we can store that much power, that's going to really be the thing that changes everything. And what we need to watch for is once you start seeing battery technology reach that point where Moore's law is definitely in play, and we're squeezing on the financial innovations of ways that we can pay for it, it's going to skyrocket.
Awesome. Troy, as you probably could tell, man, I could talk to you about this topic for hours and hours. I find it fascinating. I can tell you that I'll speak for the audience and myself. Thank you for you and your team and the innovation you guys are doing. I think the world needs it, and our industry needs it. And our industry, if they open their minds, could benefit from this, and they could position themselves as thought leaders around our future, our energy future here in this country and around the world. So tremendous job, Troy. Proud of you and your team. For those that are listening or tuning in, who do you want to make contact with you, and how would they do that?
Well, we want solar contractors, electrical contractors, absolutely. But more importantly, we want the custom integrators. These are the guys. These are the guys that make it happen, and that we've built a business supporting and innovating these new things for, because this is how you stay in business and how you stay on the cutting edge of what's out there. So I want my custom integrators to call us not only about Adapt Energy, but about Adapt, and we can teach you how to really blend those two together and just make a wonderful system for a consumer. You can find us at www.pantechdesign.com, and up at the top you'll see home automation. That's going to be the Adapt software for Crestron and also our design, engineering, and programming tools, and then energy automation as well at the top right. You'll find a lot of information about Adapt Energy, some really great videos. Like, you can actually see the technology working in my house, and it's pretty cool. And we want people to share that with their homeowners, like their customers, because that's where like you said earlier, Ron, and it's kind of cliche but very true. Picture's worth 1,000 words. So those videos are really fantastic. So best place to find us, and also set up to track us, right? If you just on our website, put your email address in there, you can stay on top of what we're doing with the innovations on both sides of the fence, Adapt and Adapt Energy. So do that, and you'll be notified of these kind of things too.
I do. I was going to let you go, Troy, but I don't want to do it without addressing some live questions from the audience. So if you will, let me try to get them some quick answers, and then we'll cut loose. Okay. First of all, Sean does jump in, and he's talking about the old school of lots of remotes down to one. And I think he's making a comparison there to the future of energy storage. So thank you, Sean, for tuning in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Agree, Sean, totally.
But Tomas asked a question here. I think only part of it's on the screen. He says, Troy, without getting into which brand is best, what is your opinion on the new Savant Power, formerly called RacePoint Energy? The presentation looks awesome, and I share your opinion that it is the future that has arrived in regards to technology. So what is it that you think, what is about on the impact of this? So it sounds like he's asking a targeted or specific question about Savant Power. But if you want to, I'll let you take that any direction you want, Troy.
Yeah, and look, Thomas, I want to be always honest about everything. So I don't really know much about what they're doing. I spent a little time with them at CEDIA 2019. And we looked at our technology and their technology, and there's just a lot of similarities there. Here's what I can tell you that I do know. I applaud them for their efforts and for their innovations, and please continue doing what you're doing, because I think it's great. And yeah, I mean that's about as far as I can take that. So unfortunately, not a lot of technical there, but I've heard some great things about what they're doing, and I'm happy that they, especially being in sort of our custom integration channel, are looking at it. It's sort of vindication, right? That we're doing the right thing too, So I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, I agree. I think when you start to see multiple brands talking about the same subject, that's very confidence building. That means that you're onto something.
Joe Friccarilli, man, he's doing some super cool stuff. We talk he's been to my house. We he's seen what we're doing. We're going to be blending our technologies because it makes sense, right? Like his technology for a battery for the home, fantastic. Ours to manage all that, it's a beautiful marriage. So there's a lot of neat things that are coming.
Awesome. And I'll just give one last shout out. Jeremy up in Minnesota he's a friend of yours and mine, and a longtime industry vet. And say again?
Jeremy P.
Yeah, Jeremy P. Yeah. In the flesh, tuning in, listen to the one and only Troy. So thanks, Jeremy, for tuning in, sir. Greatly appreciated. Again, Troy, thank you for joining me on the show. Let me see, what show is it? This is show 179. Nice. So there you were, show number 7 and show 179.
Wow. Well, thanks for the opportunity, Ron. It is fun, and I know you and I could do this for hours. Maybe someday we'll do another one, and hopefully we don't wait as long. That'd be great.
All right, you have my commitment. We won't wait 4 years for the next show. Thanks, buddy. Be well.
Yeah, man. You too.
All right, folks, there you have it. Troy Morgan, founder and CEO, PanTech Design. They are just a fascinating company. Been known for many years for being Crestron programming experts. I know they are known as design and engineering experts. They'll do that both for their clients and then directly for customers. And the adapt and adapt energy side of the equation are both incredibly innovative. And I think it's just really neat. Troy is definitely a person you want to be following. And PanTech Design is definitely a brand that you want to be tuned into just to kind of see what they're up to. I promise that they'll always have intriguing ideas and things out on the market that are making changes in lots of lives. So quickly close out. If you have not already done so, would love it if you'd subscribe to this podcast, the Automation Unplugged podcast. Remember, this was live, but this is an audio only format as well. You do need to subscribe though to get those updates. So would love you to do that. And again, we're always working hard on all of our social channels. Our social team, led by Stephanie and our new marketing manager, Jessica, have lots of exciting, I'll say, scaling and improvement and even, more powerful, helpful content that's going to be coming out on our social channels here in the coming months. So you definitely want to be tuning in. And on Instagram, that's our newest channel. You can just find us at One Firefly LLC if you are not already following us. On that note, I'm going to sign off. I look forward to seeing you all next week. I actually know this because I was working on it earlier today. We've got just another Texas native business. And in this case, it's going to be a rock star. Think of this as CE Pro 100, but just a powerhouse residential and commercial integration firm out of Dallas. And that business is Texadia. And I'm going to have Steve Burke on the show. So Steve's going to be here for episode 180. And definitely you want to tune in for that. So on that note, I'm going to sign off. Have a great rest of your week, a great weekend. And don't forget, this is summer, and relax a little bit, have a cocktail, or do whatever you need to do this weekend to relax, read a good book, hang out with your family, and I'll see you all later. Be well.